Okay, let's dive into the lesson. This is lesson 1.1. We're going to discuss number properties. So I want you to take a few moments to look over this key concept. Then we're going to do some activities with it. So the activity I'd like you to do after you've read this is to get some 3x5 note cards, list the commutative properties of both addition and multiplication, associative properties of addition and multiplication, and the identity properties of addition and multiplication, the multiplicative property of 0, and the distributive property. What I'd like you to do is create a flashcard for each of these properties. On one side of the card, write an example of the property, and then on the other side, write the name of the property. So after you get that done, then you can restart the video and we'll go on from there. Very good. Now you've got your flashcards made. I've made my own little set of cards, and what we're going to do is we're going to play a little game. So we're going to play Who Am I? So we're going to tape a copy of these properties on your back, and you have to go around to your classmates saying, "Who am I?" Now they're going to give you a clue, but the thing is, the clue has to be an example of the property. They can't give you the name, they just have to give you an example of what the property would be. So then you have to guess who you are. So you can go out in the hall or go to another classroom and play this game and then come back in a little bit and we'll have another something for you to do. So you've had a lot of practice on identifying the properties. So now I have a couple of questions that I want you to answer. First of all, what property is illustrated in this equation? And I want you to explain your answer. And what two numbers always appear in the identity properties? And how do you know which is the identity for each operation? It looks to me like I've made a little boo-boo. That needs to be a plus sign right there. So answer these two questions, and then I want you to discuss them with your partners. So here's an example of the answer that you could have had. So first of all, this is the commutative property. The numbers are grouped the same on each side, but the order of the addends is different. So the addend 5 plus 3 is first on the left side of the equation and it's second on the right side. So they have commuted from one place to the other. So that is the commutative property. So what two numbers always appear in the identity properties? Well, that's a 0 and a 1. How do you know which is the identity for each operation? The identity properties show a number that you use with the operation that does not change the original number. For addition, the identity is 0, because you can add 0 to any number and it doesn't change. And for multiplication, it is 1, because you multiply any number times 1 and it doesn't change. Now that leads us to our next question. I want you to think about this question. Describe what the word identity means to you. So what does the word identity mean to you? So pause this video for just a moment. Jot down a few things about what identity means. I want you to think about what it means to you. Focus on yourself, the concept of self. So what does your identity mean? So pause the video for just a moment, then come back and we'll talk about it. So what can you add to your appearance that makes no change to the way you look? What do you think? What can you add to yourself, to your appearance, that would not change you in any way? That's sort of a difficult question. So pause a moment, think about that, discuss it with your partners, and then turn the video back on. We'll talk about it. Why, absolutely nothing, isn't it? There is nothing that you could add to your appearance that wouldn't change it at all. So that would be like adding 0 to something. Or if you multiply by 1, you don't change. That's what identity means. That you can't change anything about yourself. Okay, let's go down to page 5 and let's look at example 1. Verify the expressions are equal and name the property shown. So first of all, what kind of operation are we performing here? You're right, we are multiplying. So in this one we have 7 times 10 times 4, but 7 and 10 are grouped together. And here we have 10 and 4 grouped together. So let's start by simplifying the expression on each side of the equation. We're going to see if they're equal. So 7 times 10 is 70 times 4. And over here we have 7 times 10 times 4, which is 40. 70 times 4 is 280, and 7 times 40 is 280. So the factors are grouped differently, or in other words, they're associating with different people. We've moved the grouping symbols. That's all we've done. Whenever you see grouping symbols moved, that is the associative property, and this one's of multiplication because we're multiplying. So now it's your turn. Verify the expressions are equal and name the property shown. So this is the expression they give us. The two expressions set equal to each other. Now, what is 8 plus 14? I want you to write it here. Write it down. What is 14 plus 8? Are those the same numbers? Do you get the same number? Yeah, good job. So the numbers are in a different order, but the sums are the same. So the commutative property of addition is being illustrated here. Good job. So let's go to example 2. Write an equation to show the additive identity property. Well, you know that if you have to add a 0 to something, the only thing you can add to a number is 0, and it doesn't change. So select any number, it doesn't matter. They've selected 23 plus 0, and then they write an equation. 23 plus 0 is 23. So now I want you to take just a moment and write an equation to show the multiplicative identity. Here we did additive identity. Now we're going to do the multiplicative identity. So you pause this a moment, you select your numbers and visit with your neighbor, then you can turn it back on. So what is the identity for multiplication? Did you put a 1 here? Good job. So then now you're going to select a number to multiply by 1. So you all came up with your own number times 1. So you'd write in an equation, whatever number you chose, times 1 is going to equal your number. Good job. So now let's look at example 3 together. Now we're going to apply the distributive property to simplify 4 times the quantity of 15 plus 3. So we got to multiply each addend, 15 and 3, by 4. So 4 times 15 plus 4 times 3. We get 60 plus 12. So the sum of the products is 72. So now I want you to apply the distributive property to simplify 8 times the quantity of 12 plus 9. Pause the video, do the work, and then come back and check your answers. So we're going to multiply each addend, or we're multiplying 12 and 9 by what number? The number 8? Excellent. So in this set of parentheses, we're going to have 8 times 12 plus 8 times 9. So what did you get here? What's 8 times 12? Should be here. 8 times 9 is here. So then we're going to take this number, place it here, this number, place it here. So what does it equal, folks? Compare with your neighbors. Excellent job. Okay, I have another little challenge for you. All 3 of these statements are incorrect. The additive identity is 1. The commutative property applies only to addition. And using the distributive property, these 2 are equal. So I want you to go in and tell me why each one of these are wrong. So pause the video for just a moment, write down why all 3 of these are wrong, and compare with your neighbor before you restart the video. Okay, so the additive identity is 1. What's wrong with that one? You're right. The additive identity is 0. If you add 1 to any number, it changes the original. So it should be the additive identity is 0. 1 is the multiplicative identity. The second problem, the commutative property applies only to addition. That is incorrect because the commutative property also applies to multiplication. Now let's look at the distributive property. 9 times 32 is equal to 9 times 3 plus 9 times 2. Well, that's not right because 32 is one single number. It's not, you don't have parentheses that you're distributing it across. So that's why that one's incorrect. Now, it could be 9 times 3 plus 2 is the same thing as 9 times 3 plus 9 times 2. That would make it correct. Good job. Right, the next thing I would like for you to do is you can stop the video and I want you to open up your textbook that you've downloaded and I want you to work the guided practice. You guys can work together if you would like, compare your answers, but I want to make sure that each of you are understanding how to work the problems yourself. So that's your responsibility. The guided practice actually begins on page 6 and it goes through to page 8. So complete all 33 problems, then you can turn back on the video. I've got one little last assessment that I'd like for you to do. Okay, for the last part of this lesson, I've got some examples that I've written down here. And I've written out the property, but I've left out a number in each one. So I need you to go in and put the proper number. And then I want you to tell me, how did you determine the value of the missing number? And then I want you to make a checklist that's going to help you identify each property when you're doing problems like these in the lesson. So make yourself a little checklist. What are you looking for the associative property? What are you looking for with the commutative property? And the difference between multiplication and addition. So make yourself a few notes and then you'll be turning that in to me.